All right, big news for the Seminoles today as the first fruits, the very beginning of what you're going to see for their massive recruiting weekend that just took place. We've gotten to that point, and there's a lot more to come, and we'll talk about maybe some of those guys in just a moment, but first let's talk about what happened today. I'll also tell you this is my second time recording this, as we had an audio issue the first time, and so we didn't get this out with the regular quickness that we normally would. But we got a commitment today, Florida State fans, from Kevin Juju Wynn, a 2025 defensive lineman, a 6'2", 325-pound defensive lineman out of Greene County High School. That's Greensboro, Georgia. He's a four-star everywhere. On3's industry has him as a top 150 type prospect. 247 is really high on him. They've got him top 60, and he's top 200 on the composite. Listen, he took official visits to UGA, South Carolina, and Texas. And Florida State, as they often do in the summer, used their last visit weekend very strategically. They made it their big visit weekend. Some people like to do that at the beginning of June. Some people like to get that first visit in and really crush it and then continue to recruit as that month goes along. Some people like to do what Florida State did and stack it all towards the end. And it's worked for Florida State. They had several commitments at the end of June and beginning of July last year. And I think Kevin Wynn just wanted to be the first one to get his name and get things rolling, as Florida State's going to have a lot of commitments over the next week and a half to 2 weeks. Florida State does a phenomenally good job of strategically using those visits at the end of the month after kids have been other places to really show kids why they need to land in Tallahassee. Now, Wynn is a two-sport athlete. He's thrown in some track and field events, incredibly strong kid. He's very physical. He uses his hands fairly well. He is an absolute tackle for loss king. I believe I saw that he had 30 this last year, and I think this is the second year that he's had nearly that number. I think almost 60 for his last two seasons. He gets in the backfield at an alarming rate. He's incredibly strong, and he's a true force at his size. Defenders in his classification, offensive guys that are trying to keep you from getting to the quarterback, are just absolutely not able to stop him or really even slow him down. Ton of tackles for losses. He's got a really nice frame. I think he fits into what Florida State likes to do. You've seen Florida State be pretty consistent with having that big run-stopping, one-tech type guy over the last few years, whether that be Robert was there a couple of years ago, Fabian's been there the last couple of years, and they've tried to continue to recruit guys that can do that. They can fill up those gaps and be those guys that are just absolutely going to shut down that run. And I think he's somebody who can do that. You obviously like to see him get a little bit better in pass protection, but he's got a long way to go before you're going to start needing him or counting on him to be on the field every down. And I think that he's at a good place that can develop him for that. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but ultimately a massive pickup for the Noles here. Listen, you went up against the UGAs, the Texases, South Carolina, another SEC program. Not that that's a battle you should be losing too often, but you went up against three SEC programs and you did what you needed to do, and you finished here. And a lot of people felt really good about Florida State going into the weekend. They didn't leave any room for doubt. They didn't leave this up to chance. They shut it down. They got him committed. They got him in the fold. And Florida State's building a pretty strong defensive line class at this point. Development. I want to talk about that just a little bit, but just before I do, I want to give some love to Coach Odell. There's been a lot of murmurs. There's been a lot of rumors. There's been a lot of talk or chitter-chatter or whatever talking about could Odell still recruit at this level. And it's not just been Odell. I mean, you can look at the positions that Florida State has struggled to recruit the last couple of years, and you think about different positions on the defense or offensive side of the ball, and you think, man, is that going to get better? Or are we just going to have to kind of live in the portal at these positions? And it's not just Odell, but Florida State has done a really good job addressing those needs in this cycle. And it looks like they're really close on hitting on more and more of those guys at really those front seven positions defensively, where games truly are won and lost. I mean, you talk about trenches, you talk about all the cliches you want. Florida State's done a good job of developing talent there, but I just don't know that it's been enough. And now you put this kind of talented kid and others that they're recruiting and close to landing and have already landed, you think about Hilson and others, on that defensive line, and you let Pap and Odell mold some of that clay, and what does the future look like at that point, right? What does the future look like going forward? can they really turn this into one of the more special front sevens in the country? Well, it's already really good. Can they continue to develop to where Florida State's defensive line is back to what it's always been and really strikes fear in opponents' hearts? Obviously, Fuller, Norvell, big credit there as well. The team approach, the unified approach that they really take when recruiting a player. It's not just all Odell. We'll give him the lion's share of the love here today, but it truly is a team effort. And so shout out, really everybody involved with this recruitment. I think what I mentioned a second ago, development, is what I am most excited about. And I think getting this kid in and developed under Odell, you look at what he's done with, his track record of putting guys into the NFL, his track record of really making guys stand out and be very special has been phenomenal. And you like to obviously can see that continue, and nothing against anybody else that he's recruited in the past, but there's been a lull there in some of the recruiting, and he's done a good job of kind of finding those low 4-3, high 3 stars and turning them into hidden gems and truly developing them beyond what was ever expected. But now that you're going to kind of put a little bit better clay in his hands, what can he mold that into? And that's probably what I'm most excited about, because you look at the defensive line recruiting, both on the inside and on the edge. You've got the number 1 edge committed in Hilson. There's talk about Wiggins. You just picked up Wynn. There's chit chat about Myron Charles and can you get this guy or that guy? You also have Amari Williams that you picked up last year, but essentially is just a 2025 recruit that's on campus a year early. The future for that defensive line room, both at edge and inside, is looking better and better all the time. Now listen, I don't have an ad. I don't have something I'm going to sell you on this video. I'm not going to tell you, oh, you got to click this link or go buy this or that or the other. If you're watching this and you're not already, just do me a simple favor and hit the subscribe button. If you're this late in the video, if you're still watching at this point, I assume that you are already subscribed. But if you're not, do me a favor, hit that button and let's ride. Now, again, you're probably not going to win a battle like this against the Georgias and Texas and South Carolinas and these other programs without a very healthy NIL. Appreciate the Battles End for all of their work and effort that goes into this. If you're not a member, certainly would encourage you to go do that. I think Florida State has a top 10 NIL in the country, and we certainly need to continue to support it so that we can continue to be in these battles and win these battles when we do. What does the outlook look like for Florida State's class going forward? Well, I think you're going to see a lot more movement over these next couple of weeks. I think you're going to see more commitments. Guys set dates, guys don't set dates. It doesn't really matter. These can kind of pop up whenever, and you're going to have more and more of this happening. We've talked a lot about this in our Patreon. We told Discord about this last night. We put in a prediction. We told our members that was going to happen. If you need access to that, the link is in the description. You can go join there at any time. No pressure, not required to. But if you're needing that little bit of extra info, if you want the tips and tricks and little news that might be coming out, you can certainly go check that out. Patreon.com/DFNS. Excited about Juju. I'm excited about Kevin Wynn here. I think he's a great talent that Florida State is very lucky to have gotten. They worked their butts off for this recruitment. They need to continue to stack that front seven recruiting on the defensive side of the ball. And so big hats off to everybody involved. But, hats off to this kid for picking, the right place to be, right? These are the kind of kids that you're going to look back and say, those were the difference makers, the ones that got Florida State up over the hump and truly took them and kept them at that elite level that, they've won 23 games in the last 2 years, right? And got them to continue to sustain that success. A really big pickup, massive shout out to Odell, and really excited to see what this kid can do. If you missed our last video in which we talked about more of the kids who are very close to committing, very close to pulling the trigger, other guys that we think Florida State's in a good spot for, you can click the video on the screen right now to check that out.